All right, today we have a 2006 Lexus RX330, and it needs the high pressure power steering hose. Now the problem with this car is, okay, so right there where my flashlight is, that is the high pressure power steering hose. It runs down to the rack, it runs up and then over, and then get the light over here, back down to the pump. Well, see that bracket right there in the center of the frame? The power steering hose is bolted to that bracket. Then there's another bracket in the center, and then up there it's also bolted. Can I get my camera on it? It's also bolted, yeah, right there in the center of the frame. So unfortunately, I don't think we can get this power steering hose out without, here's another look at it right there, that it comes into the pump. And of course the pump's all wet because the hose is leaking. I don't think there's a way to get this hose out without taking the intake manifold off. The upper intake manifold, that is. So we are going to go back upstairs underneath the hood and see if we can start taking the manifold off. All right, I bought a brand new Lexus hose for this car because I wanted to show you what it looks like. So this is the end that goes into the rack and pinion, and then it's got a, I didn't even see that, it's got a bracket that bolts here. Then it runs up to the driver's side, and there's a bracket here. Then under the center, which the catalytic converter's in the way, there's another bracket there. Then there's another bracket here that I showed, and then it dips down and goes to the power steering pump. So I don't know why this hose couldn't have just come over to a piece of rubber and then ran up and in. I don't know. So here we are underneath the hood, and I think we're going to have to do it just like we do spark plugs on these. We are going to remove this cover, which has the screws right here, and then this just pops up out of the way. Get this out of the way, throw it in the plastic parts bin. And then on this car here, there's no room to get to that manifold. It's underneath the wiper cowling here. So we're going to go ahead and take the wiper's arms off, get the top cowling off, get the bottom cowling off to get that out so we can access those bolts to firewall. And I talked to the service manager, and he said, well, why, if we've taken the manifold off, we've never done spark plugs on these, so we're going to go ahead and do the spark plugs. The front three are very easy. The back three are underneath the manifold, so we're already got the manifold off, we might as well go ahead and change them. So next step also is to take this air inlet out, get the air filter box and all these lines out of the way. So let me start taking some of this stuff apart, and I'll come back. All right, I started taking the cowling apart. Okay, so first step you have to do is you got to take the 14mm nut off there, and those for the wiper arms. You wiggle the wiper arms up and down, and then the wiper arms pop off. After you get that out, there's a plastic cover here that comes out that's retained by clips here, 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 and here. And basically with that, here's that piece here. You just basically have to squeeze them together, and then it will pop out. So once you get that out of the way, you disconnect the electrical connection that comes through this hole. Now you have to take two of the strut nuts off. There's a bolt back here, and there's 10mm bolts there. There's one up there. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and take the wiper transmission out, so take it out there, and there, and there, and get this out of the way so I can access all these bolts to get this tin cover off. Once I get this tin cover off, I'll go ahead and continue with the air cleaner assembly. Be real careful. The windshield's right here, not to break the windshield. Sounds like my battery is weak. All right. Now that we got that tin cover out, there's actually the top of that bracket there. Still can't feel that one, but that gives us much better access to getting this manifold off, to change spark plugs, because I still can't feel that one bracket tray. I'm probably gonna have to take the throttle body off to get that. I kind of plan to do that anyway. All right, so let's continue on. We'll get the air cleaner assembly out and start on the throttle body, and I'll be back. All right, I got the upper air cleaner box out, and usually I would just leave this in here, but there's only 3 bolts. I've already taken them loose, so this thing should just slide on out. As you see, I have my pile of parts. I try to stack them in the right order, so as I put them back in, they go in the right order. So right there is one of the coils that we're putting plugs in. So there's a coolant line, there's another bracket for the throttle body. He said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and take the throttle body off the manifold and just lay it out of the way, and that'll give me better access to those brackets back there. So let me get that taken off. Once again, I'll be back. All right, I've taken the throttle body bolts off, the wire connection off, and there was a bracket that ran from the lower manifold up to the throttle body. When we pull this off, it still has some coolant hoses running to it. I'm just gonna leave those connected. I'll probably get a bungee cord to get that out of the way. But now look, there's the power steering hose that runs over to this bracket right here, and then it runs on up and goes that way to that next bracket. So we can actually see what we're going after, which is this power steering hose right here. So let me get a bungee cord to get this back, and we'll take this nut off. That's one of the support brackets for the manifold. We'll get that off, that one off. We'll see if we can reach back there now to get that other bracket off. We might have to go back down below and disconnect these brackets on the motor to make them loose. So let me continue working, and then we'll probably, next thing also after that, we'll have to take the solenoid bracket out of the way and then start taking the manifold bolts out there. Oh, and here, let me show you, here is a little helpful hint that I do. Since this is a stainless steel top, I just take a Sharpie and I put all my nuts and bolts. This is for the cowling lower. Those are all the wiper bolts. Here we have the cover under the car. Here is a front shield, and here are all the throttle body bolts. And when I'm done, all I have to do is take a rag and a little bit of gum cutter on the rag, and the Sharpie mess will just erase. So there's a helpful hint on keeping all your bolts, and you know where they go, instead of putting them in a magnetic tray going, well, where's this one go, where's that one go? And if you have ones that are different size, you can actually stack them up and put, you know, number them 1, 2, 3, 4, so you know where they go. There's a nice helpful hint for you guys. Alrighty, so I don't remember where I left off because I've been working on this thing. But I got the relay things flipped over there out of the way. I took all the upper manifold bolts out. Then there's that bracket right there. There's a 14 millimeter headed bolt there. There's a 12 millimeter bolt here. Thank God for gear wrenches. They're flat and they ratchet. Thank God for gear wrenches. So I got that out. The manifold should be about ready to come up. All right, like I said earlier, I got that bolt out, that bolt out, that bolt out. So I was trying to lift the manifold up and out, but it wouldn't come out. It has a stud here and a stud here. So either it was to take this wire harness loose or pull the 2 studs. I opted to pull the 2 studs. Then you had the brake booster line here, and then there's the PVC valve on this side. You have to disconnect the line. Once you do that, the manifold comes right out. Okay, now that I got the manifold up and out, let me show you here. So here's the power steering hose. It comes up and it bolts to this bracket on this stud. I already took that one off so I can get my hand back there to get this bolt out here. This bolt bolts to the back of the manifold. So here's the other connection of that power steering hose. There is absolutely ½ inch of room there, and the manifold was right here. There was no way to get that off. This one, same way. I might have been able to sneak something in here to get that one out, but I never would have gotten this one out. So now I can take those two off. I'm gonna start taking this hose and getting this hose off. Now there's another bracket down there that I have to find where it goes to, and I'll have to come over here and get the bolt off the power steering pump, the banjo bolt that holds the line on. So I don't believe there's any other way to do this job except for take the manifold off. And then while we're here, we're going to go ahead and change the spark plugs because it's got coil packs. Okay, I just wanted to show again that there's the one stud there that holds the power steering bolt on. It's a 10mm nut. There's a 10mm nut there. And I just noticed that down here, that other bracket is, I know my flashlight's too bright, but see that bolt in the center of the frame? That is also has to come out, because that holds the steering hose down there. But I can get through, that looks like a 12, and I can get through that with a very long extension and get that broken free next. And then on this side over here, I don't know if I have to come through the top to get, I might have to come through the top here with the socket to get the banjo bolt loose. I'm going to put it up in the air next after I get that bracket taken out and see what we have to do. All right, we're back underneath the car. This is the line we need to take off. It's a 17, so we'll take that off there. And then on the other side here where it goes into the power steering pump, let me get the light up in here somehow so you might be able to see. It's kind of hard to show you. Right there, there's that switch. You have to unplug that switch, and below that switch is there. There we go. Below that switch is a banjo bolt that we have to get out. Once we take that out, then the line will be free at the pump. Might have to take the switch out, then take the other piece out. I'm not sure yet. I'll see if I can get a wrench up there. If I can't, usually I use a socket, so I think I'm going to have to take that pressure switch out. All right, I was able to get the banjo bolt out of the pump where the pump goes in, but to be able to do that, I had to take the return line, well actually the suction line, which is the line that puts oil to the pump, and then it sits right there behind if I get my hand in. And to break it free, I was able to go through here with a 24mm wrench and break that free. That is broken free there. That's a 17mm wrench, so the line is all loose. I guess I'm going to try to get the line out from up top and see if it just pops out now. All right, now let's see if we can get this line up and out of here. We'll just have to pay attention to the routing. And there it is. Let's try to get the new one dropped in. So I know this is on that end there. And that drops it. All right, well, it's sitting in there. I think I'm just gonna leave this all loose so I can get the lower line started down here and this line started, and we'll come back up and we'll mount it back to where it's supposed to be. All right, I got the line started down below. And once I got those started below, I came back up and I put that bracket there tightened, that bracket there's tightened, that bracket's remounted and tight, and down, you know, this one hose is in the way. Let me get my phone down really good for y'all. Right there, that bracket right there on the left hand of the screen, I had to loosen the 10 going horizontal to get that lined up, but that's all lined up now. So now I have to go back underneath and tighten up all the lines. And on the line over here on the power steering pump, I did have to take the suction line off to the pump to get it out. Alrighty, the new hose and the banjo bolt and the pressure switch is plugged in. The suction hose is back on, and over here the new hose is in and tight with the bracket and the little thing to keep the lines from touching. And so we're basically done underneath here. And now we have to go back up top with the spark plugs in. All right, we're getting ready to put the plugs in this car. And as you can see here are the front 3 plugs. The clip is broken. It's very common on these that the clip breaks. So there's nothing really retaining these wires. And they didn't try to do anything to keep them from falling off. And in the back here, this one still had its retainer, excuse me. This one is broken, did not. And this one had its retainer here. So now to get the plugs out, you got to take out the 10mm bolt here, here, and here, and slide the coils out, take and change the plugs. And what I'm going to do on this one here, I'm actually going to safety wire it so it doesn't pull off. I'll probably safety wire the front ones also. So let me get the plugs in and we'll keep getting it. So when I put the plugs in, I've already taken the old plugs out, put the new plugs in. I always put the coils back in the same place where they can't come out. The reason for that is if you've replaced one coil, then you know you're not replacing the same coil again if the same cylinder comes up and misfires. So I always try to put the coils back in the same locations. Haven't done the back yet. We'll get the backs done and we'll start putting the manifold on. Okay, on this car here, I've got all the plugs back in the back, all the coils are back in. One of the wires, retainers, was broken, so I fixed that. So I'm gonna show you what I do. Instead of buying new wire retainers for this, I take a piece of safety wire and I run it underneath the coil mount here, pull it back through, unplug the connector, put it in between the 2 wires, plug this back in. Once I do that, I just give myself, pull up on both wires good, and just lay them over, and just give them a twist, or a couple twists. Take my diagonal cutter to make sure I grab the excess so they don't go flying into the engine, and then we're done. So I did 4 out of the 6 coils because somebody had broken the things. It's very common on these. They get brittle, all the heat underneath it just, when you go to release these, they just snap off. But somebody didn't put anything to hold these on. These easily could have slid off. And the one in the back, they put a little, like, some type of putty on it that had dried out. It wasn't holding it on it very good at all. So now all the plugs are in, all the coils are in, all the coil wiring harnesses are secure. So now we're going to start doing the intake manifold. Now, I already told you that I took the 2 studs out there and there. So what I plan to do on this, I plan to set the manifold back in, and I'm going to try to get that bolt started, that bolt started, and that bolt started. Get all those bolts started before I tighten down the manifold. Because if you tighten the manifold down before you get those started over there, you'll never get it done. So I don't know how much I'm going to be able to film doing this, but I'll show you. I'll come back after I get it basically back in. All right, I got the manifold set in there. So I changed the gasket on the upper intake manifold. So I'll tell you the first thing I did. The first thing I did is I set it down there, I put the PVC hose back on first. Then I got this mount started first. Then this mount here, I couldn't get started, so I actually loosened it up from the bottom so the rod would have a little bit more play. Then I got that one started next, and then I was able to wiggle the manifold around enough to get that one started. So these are all started. See, the manifold is still loose. So now I'm gonna go get the torque spec, and I'm gonna torque the manifold bolts down properly, and then go back and tighten those up. And then from there, next step would be the relays that go here, then the throttle body. So I'll just keep getting it. All right, I got all these bolts torqued to 28 Newton meters, and then I went around back and I just snugged up all the bracketry back there. So that is all done. And I don't know why, I call this an upper intake manifold. They call this an intake surge tank. I have no idea why they call it a intake surge tank. Intake air surge tank, I do believe. I'll have to go look at it. Maybe when I come back I'll tell you. But anyway, so now that I've got that all torqued, now it comes time for this, the vacuum stuff to go get put back. So we're getting closer. All right, next, the vacuum relay center. It's got that 10 millimeter nut there, 10 millimeter head nut there. I just flipped it back over, 2 wire connections. This goes to the upper intake manifold. This one goes to the back of the throttle body. This is the evaporative emission line that we did not disconnect. We had to put the brake booster line back in. We had to put the throttle body back on with its bracket, and we plugged the electrical connection in. One step closer. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put all the air cleaner stuff in before I start putting that panel on. Probably put all the air cleaner stuff back in, and then I'll start it up and make sure it still runs and try to get the power steering bled. So let me get the air cleaner in, because it does have a mass airflow sensor that needs to be hooked up. So I'll put all the air cleaner stuff in, which is the bottom 3 bolts, the air filter, then the top, the clamp on the throttle body, and then all these vacuum hoses. Okay, got all the air filter assembly back in. I filled up the power steering fluid, and before I did anything, I turned the key on and I turned the wheel all the way one way and turned the wheel all the way back the other way, and the level went down, so I went ahead and added a little bit more. So let's fire her up, and let's make sure I don't have a check engine light or anything before I go any further. And she appears to be running. Crank the steering wheel around a little bit. All right. A little below the minimum. I'll just go ahead and bring it up to the minimum. Put the maximum. Well, it sounds like it's running pretty good. So now comes all the windshield wiper stuff. I think I'm gonna let it run for a little bit, make sure I have no check engine light. So now, like I said, my pile of parts here is getting smaller. So the next piece goes in this bottom tin piece. That gets all bolted in. Then the wiper transmission gets put in. Then the plastic cover gets put in. And then I have a plastic cover that covers this area here, and the plastic cover that sits on top of the engine. So basically I have a bunch more cover to do. Don't know if I'm going to show you putting that all back together. If I don't, all right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and hit that thumbs up if you like the video. I said I wasn't going to film it, but I guess I decided to film it. Be careful not to break the windshield. Oh, I just noticed there was a short one. I do believe the short one actually did it through. Okay, so this piece has got to go under the windshield first, like that. There we go. See how it's got to fit underneath there first, and then once it gets in there, then it just goes down. Two wire mesh things are pulled out. I don't know why, but they just clip back in. Slots down at the bottom here. Over in that corner, there's that rubber piece that tucks in. just like that. Now the wiper blade. And then the nuts. Cooling fan just came on. Good sign. I give the wipers a wipe, make sure they're not hitting. Alrighty, wipers are looking good. So I still have a pile of plastic parts over here. So like I said, this plastic cover here goes here. That's the engine cover, and that's a panel that goes underneath I'll have to put back on. So anyway, I know I said I was going to end the video before, but now I'm definitely ending the video. That's how you do a high pressure power steering hose on a 2006 RX330 Lexus. And also, this is what you have to do spark plugs on it also. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and please subscribe.